I'm Christina Hodge, Academic Curator and Collections Manager, and I'd like to introduce you to the Stanford University Archaeology Collections. In the spring of 2019, SUAC installed its new annual exhibit curated by Stanford students. Trading Faces, Aspects of a 20th Century Northwest Coast Collection, showcases carvings, prints, and paintings made for sale by First Nations artists across British Columbia's coast in the 1970s and 80s. Students studied these items and discovered creators used them to communicate qualities of tradition and innovation, assertions of sovereignty, management of historical trauma, and evocative connections to landscape and place. On opening day, each curatorial team gave a short talk about its case, explaining their theme and pointing out important details about the creations they researched and the surprising things they learned about Indigenous cultures and themselves along the way. These are their stories. Northwest Coast tribes have many legends to help explain the world and their presence in it. These stories survive since time immemorial and inspire contemporary artists. Bookwus is an otherworldly being in Kwakwaka'wakw folklore whose goal is to bring living people into the world of the dead. At our exhibit opening, students explained how they researched two contemporary Kwakwaka'wakw artists to understand how they expressed the Bookwus myth in more or less traditional ways.
Hi everybody, thank you all for coming. My name is Blake and I'm a sophomore. And I want to talk mainly about two challenges that Jem and I faced while we were creating our case on student mythology. So the first challenge that we encountered was when we were researching information about our artists, like to say, Mark Henderson made this print, he also made this print. And so I emailed a couple of cultural centers up in British Columbia. I want to read the only response I got back from the center. Sorry, we don't have any information on Mark Henderson. Can you pick another artist to focus on? All the Northwest Coast artists I can think of right now, this one is really difficult to research because not a lot of people know anything about him. Just saying, smiley face. So I think that was the first introduction to a challenge as far as in a lot of archaeological collections, we don't necessarily get to know a lot about the artists and who made the pieces that we have. And I think that our collection was special in that we did have the names of some of the artists. So it became a really interesting and valuable opportunity where we did get to display art from artists that are not necessarily incredibly well known, but still have a name, which I really appreciated. And the other challenge that we faced when we were putting the exhibit together was learning about the Bookwus myth, which is the character that's depicted in both the mask and the two figures on the print. We were able to find out information about the myth as what it was told, as far as the wild man in the woods, but we weren't able to figure out information about why it was told. And that was really tough for me because I felt like I should get to know why the myth was told and why the Northwest communities, why this myth was passed down through these generations of Northwest Coast communities. And I think that through not being able to find out why it was told, it was a really interesting lesson to me as far as being able to learn about what the myth was, but not necessarily being able to be the one to tell the story or tell the reasons behind why the story was told. And a lesson in appreciating art for its aesthetic value and what you can learn, and then also understanding what you don't necessarily need to learn as well.
Cool. Thanks, Blake. My name is Jem. I am a graduate student in religious studies. Shout out to my fellow grad students and alum of the class. So yeah, I really want to emphasize what Blake said about we as a class, we really lived in sort of uncertainty in a way. We didn't have all of the information about artists, about the myths that are represented in some of the art, and so we actually found that was a good thing. We don't need to know everything about a culture that has experienced a lot of oppression and erasure. And we felt like both of these pieces specifically represent resistance in a way. So the print, as Blake said, has two characters. Often Bookwus is represented as a male and acts alone when he lures people to the shore with his delicious clams. And the print also includes a background, which wouldn't have been a traditional way of depicting the character. Normally it would just be sort of blank. The mask also represents a traditional form of carving. So it's carved from one piece of red cedar, which is a popular material to use because it's so strong. But the mask also, when the potlatch ceremony was banned in Canada, the Kwakwaka'wakw and the Northwest Coast tribes also lost a lot of cultural heritage pieces because they weren't able to necessarily perform ceremony, which is what masks have been used for. So the artist, William George, that created this mask, we think is kind of reclaiming that cultural heritage. And while we don't know basically anything about the artist, we know that Bookwus is depicted in particular ways in the broader Northwest Coast art tradition. So the colors that you see, black, green, red, the perfectly round eyes. Often Bookwus has hair on masks, but this one doesn't. So yeah, thank you for coming and learning with us.
Thanks. We hope you enjoyed learning about how Northwest Coast creators incorporate tradition and innovation into their work. There's more to learn in our 3 other Trading Faces exhibit videos. You can learn more about SUAC on our website or by contacting us.